stage Director, Mastercard Pacific, Craig Kirkland.
Hi, everyone. I often tell people that I have the best job in Mastercard, which I just confirmed. In the last session I was in, hearing some of our wonderful students here talking about their challenges, where they want to be and how passionate they are about their country and making things better for their country, fellow countrymen and women. Nothing short of astounding. So that's confirmed it for me. So the other thing I want to talk about, first of all, is that we have a saying at Mastercard, and that is, Apple is not a fruit, Amazon is not a river, and Mastercard is not a credit card company. We're actually a technology company. We have made a lot of acquisitions over the years. We deliver loyalty. We have a massive cyber intelligence team. We have a massive data and services team, test and learn capabilities. There's a whole lot of what we do, and you'll see from some of the things we're doing that comes out in what we do as well. So first of all, our focus on the Pacific, we have a massive focus on financial inclusion. And financial inclusion is not about just issuing a whole bunch of cards to people. It's not about opening a whole lot of bank accounts either, particularly with SMEs. SMEs are the backbone of Pacific countries. They need help in their business, and that's what we're all about. Also, we've onboarded about 5 or 6 Indigenous banks. So by that I mean local banks in the Cook Islands, Samoa, American Samoa, Vanuatu, all over the place, to give them the chance to be able to compete on a global stage with the larger, typically foreign-owned banks. The other one is digitisation. This is the future, not just of the Pacific, but of the world. There's a lot being said today about digitisation. It's the pathway to prosperity and efficiency and all those sort of things. So you'll see what we've done in Fiji recently, which I'm going to share with you today, talks to all of that. Obviously, expanding acceptance. I touched on SME before. That's around, for example, Marama's at the market, being able to sell things directly to tourists who may not have local currency. And the other one is e-commerce, and I'll separate those out a little bit during my presentation, and also transit. So Fiji, for example, now is transitioning from a closed-loop bus fare ticketing solution to an open loop where they can accept, tourists can hop on and off a bus in Fiji probably in about a year's time, I'd imagine. And that also includes taxis, which is often a poor visitor experience when they don't take cash, or they only take cash, I should say. And the other one is tourism. Tourism, or everything seems to touch tourism in some way, shape or form. Everything we do and everything we've done ties into tourism. Plus, we work with tourism bodies. At the moment, we provide them access to spend data in 5 countries across the Pacific because they've never had access to actual spend data. So they get an idea of how they can market more efficiently. We also have that loyalty capability, so they can create offers that we can put in to bank wallets all around the world, so we can drive tourism into these countries, but also through this digitisation of the payment network and bringing more people into the digital payment network. They can increase yield, so people will spend more when they're in country. So that's at a high level. We have an ethos called doing well by doing good, and that was coined by our former CEO, Mr. R.J. Bunga, who's now the head of the World Bank. And what that means for people like me is that I can go out and do good things without a really harsh ROI kind of outcome required. And we end up doing well anyway by doing these good things and helping people out in the Pacific. That's a global thing. But he also came up with a recent one as well, which I quite like, and that is development delayed is development denied. So there's an onus on everybody to make people's lives better and look at the technologies, look at digitisation to create better outcomes for people. So we owe a lot to RJ. He's done a lot for us, and he's also done a lot for the world as well and continues to do that. So what do we think about innovation? So it's solving existing problems in a new way, particularly if it enhances people's lives. And that's what we should be aiming for. and it's leveraging or enhancing platforms that exist today. Obviously digital, but it must be people-centric. Everything we do, we have an element of either education or inclusion, particularly with women in the markets that we operate in. People often say that our competitor is Visa. Visa is not our biggest competitor. Cash is our biggest competitor globally. There's still a ton of transactions made in cash. You can see that it's inefficient, it's costly. We've just done a study in Fiji, which I'm happy to share with anybody, looking at the value of electronic payments to businesses and also the cost of cash, not just for businesses, for banks, central banks, and everyone having to produce, manage, and deal with some things around cash. It also allows for a shadow economy, which means obviously revenue collection by governments is not where it needs to be. Financial exclusion is part of that because not everyone has cash when they come to different countries, so people miss out. It can hinder economic growth, and obviously there's a lot of crime and corruption associated with cash, with stealing, armed robbery, theft, staff shrinkage, all of those sort of things. So, and invariably as we talk to different people around the Pacific, banks, central banks, they're all looking to us to see what role we can play in minimising the level of cash that's in circulation because of all of those sort of issues. So a bit about the history of innovation. So innovation is the next step forward, but at every step of the way around payments, at a particular time and place, that was innovation. So we look back at card payments. So this is probably looking back over the last 30 years. In the old days, there was no terminals. It was all done on these zip-zap machines, all that sort of thing, highly prone to fraud. Then we had terminals where you swipe cards using magnetic stripe technology off the back of cards. At one stage, that was an innovation and a security feature. That technology has been completely compromised now, and people are moving away for very, very good reasons. And then we get into, like, for Australia and New Zealand around 2006, New Zealand 2011, when we launched Tap and Go or contactless, or we called it PayPass back in the day. And it's not just about throughput, it's now has a hygiene factor around that and all that sort of thing. And there's a lot more applications now with, vending machines and all parking and all those sort of things, which are remote, that you can now leverage from this type of technology. Then what we saw was Square came along with what we call dongles that you plug into your phone that you can take a payment with. And then we have the device in the middle is one that you pair to a mobile phone. But the beauty about the Pacific is that those technologies didn't really land here. But where we're now focused is on the mobile phone or the smartphone, because everyone seems to have one. And it makes sense not to play in these extra sort of pieces of hardware because they have their own issues with charging and draining the battery of your phone. So now where we're at, and I'll talk more about DualPay from Fiji, is leveraging the person's mobile phone to take payments, which is something we launched only a few weeks ago in Fiji, and we think that has a lot of possibility across the islands. And even since we launched that, we have a lot of new players now wanting to launch. You'll see this launched in next year in Cook Islands, maybe Samoa, and maybe a few other operators in Fiji as well. Some of the other innovations around payments are mobile commerce. So that was terminals that could move around. Again, we're not going there. We're going to go straight to mobile phone. Mobile person-to-person, enabling people to touch phones to exchange funds in a digital manner. Contactless or tap and go, as I mentioned before. That really became popular during COVID, not just where I live in Australia, but all around the world. And even e-commerce grew through COVID as well. And now a lot of businesses want those two capabilities, which is what we call omnichannel, which is the ability to take a phone in a very hygienic way and also have an online presence for ordering and delivering or ordering and click and collect, as we call it at home. Buy now, pay later is a new way of, some would say, extending credit. The operators would say it's not, but it's a way to effectively turn one transaction or one purchase into 4 payments over a period of time, maybe 4 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that. It's extremely popular. And I think right now the regulators are looking at in Australia as to whether that's provision of credit or not. And I think it's quite a good idea, but it can get out of hand if it's not supervised properly. SME bundling, this is kind of what we're really on about at the moment in the Pacific. And that's giving the people the ability to be paid, to get paid and make payments. So what I mean by that is you put a card product together with a phone product, so people can now take payments through their phone. We'll also have a tool that they can manage their expenditure on, and they don't have to carry cash around and that sort of thing. We've seen that work really well around the world as a financial inclusion tool. And just this week, I've been talking to a couple of banks on that capability. And the other one's smart cities, and that's around digitising a lot of sort of transport or transit experiences that people have, like parking, all forms of transport, so buses, trains, ferries, all of that sort of thing, linking that to ride share as well, and also car parking and all of those sort of things. So these are probably the most prevalent ones that are appearing at the moment. Now we'll move to payment innovation in the Pacific. So as I said before, we're really passionate about SMEs, and we really need to address this. We hosted a Pacific Forum in Auckland earlier in the year. We had a Talanoa session at the end, and this is what we focused on. So what we said is, and this was mainly with banks, we had some SMEs in the room. We had an SME from Samoa who grows, she's a vanilla seller. The only way she can sell online is because she has a bank account in New Zealand. So she's able to use, I think, Stripe or something like that. So we said to the banks, if she lived in Auckland, grew vanilla in Auckland, and wanted to sell her vanilla online from Auckland, you would bank her tomorrow. Why is she being punished for living in Samoa? Why aren't you extending that capability? So that's a hot topic with us and the banks, and we're working on ways to make e-commerce access much easier. And I'll talk a bit about why that's easier. And the reason is because the products that are available in the Pacific are amazing. They have very good provenance. They're very well credentialed from a sustainability perspective, and usually a story behind every SME who wants to sell online. They're all social sellers, so they know what they're doing. But when you hear those stories around what that means for them or their village or whatever, it's a great story. And the other thing is they also want that omni-channel capability. So they want to be able to sell in markets, but they want to be able to sell online as well. And we need to meet that demand and drive that demand through advocating for SMEs and applying pressure where we can apply pressure, or more importantly, bring those technologies to bear so that people can actually have access to them. So that's a really hot topic for us at the moment, because it can't continue. We just can't leave these people out in the cold anymore, and we won't progress as a region until we bring those people into the digital economy. It's really that simple. So tap on phone. So this is Dual Pay that we launched with. So there was a partnership between ourselves and DFAT, and we had 2 other partners, FinTech Pacific and also YGAP. The reason YGAP is an NGO, and the reason we got them involved is because the brief was COVID recovery, female SMEs in Fiji. So we didn't want to impose a technology that people weren't comfortable with. We wanted them to understand the benefits they would get from this technology. And as a result of that, that's been really successful. Not just successful in Fiji, but as I said before, it's had a halo effect in other parts of the region, and people are starting to look at this now. And what we want to do is make a point to the enablement community in the Pacific that this can be done. There's a need for it. People want it. The advocacy from the women has been tremendous, and we just know that that will work in a lot of other. And we talk to women in the markets all around the Pacific and show them these sorts of things, and they really want to do it. And it's quite simply an app. It's an Android app, so it works on 90% of the phones in the islands. That's sort of the handset split, and they're able to transact with people who don't have cash. So if you think about people getting off a cruise ship, wandering through the handicraft markets, they want to buy something, they can't because they don't have local currency. They'll go to an ATM, they might wish to pay the ATM fee, which is not low, but then they end up shopping in the high street and the local ladies miss out. So, and we pitched that as a poor visitor experience to Fiji as well, to the tourism minister and Tourism Fiji. So they're all on board. And more importantly, when someone deals in cash, despite the fact there's a lot of talk around financing, microfinancing, that sort of thing, quite simply, if a lender doesn't have a history of your business, it's very hard for them to lend, both from a commercial perspective plus from a responsible lending perspective. When you start to use digital tools for your business, a profile of your business, you can present that capability or your business history to a lender if you need a small loan for something. And that's what we're seeing from some of these merchants who, there's one lady in Fiji who does ice cream as one of her things. She needs a bigger van now, a bigger refrigerator van, because she's been very successful. But now that she can collect payments digitally, she can now present that to a lender or even an NGO for funding and get that sort of support. And there's further application. So I was talking to a fisherman in Rarotonga about this. So we came up with a great idea where he could fish the reef, catch a big tuna, take a photo of the fish, email it to a few of the hotels, to their restaurants, and see who wanted to pay the most. And if they wanted to, he could get his payment that day. And what's emerging from this is a whole lot of other applications. So Fiji gas deliveries, there's thousands of gas deliveries made every day, and there's all this cash handling and reconciliation, all that sort of stuff, water transit, markets, rock markets, those sorts of places. And I'm sure there's a lot more that we haven't even thought about yet that will come to pass for this sort of capability. E-commerce, again, it's another big thing for us, and I heard a lot about e-commerce here today. So there are several gateways available today. 2 of the banks in the region actually use our gateway. They white label it, and it's used in several hundred countries around the world. And the majority are 3DS enabled. Now, I'm not going to take you through a technology lesson. I will touch on 3DS because it's a really good thing for those who want to trade online, particularly around fraud and chargebacks and that sort of thing. There are still barriers to merchant having access, and a lot of that sits at the banking level. And I would say it's a misperception of risk, given that the new technologies are here. So we have payment gateways. We have world-class payment gateways in this region, even in Papua New Guinea. And we also have the added feature of 3DS Secure. So it's a standard, it's a global standard. EMV is the organisation that dictates what the standards are for digital payments, electronic payments. Now EMV has now moved into the e-commerce space. So EMV stands for Europay, Mastercard, Visa. These are standards we created many, many years ago, and it's all around chip. But we transferred those chip standards into e-commerce, or as we call it, card not present. So what it means is that it brings significant benefits to merchants. There was an older version. It was really clunky. It was activated during shopping, which is a really poor experience. It leads to cart abandonments. There was pop-ups involved, which people thought they were being scammed. It was a thing for its time, but very quickly with all the phishing and all of those sorts of things, people weren't adopting it, and it was leading to significant cart abandonment for e-tailers. And the reason it's 3DS2, as we call it now, is much better is because we have so much more data to work with. So when you're looking at working out if a transaction's fraudulent or not, In the past, we looked at a transaction to say, is that transaction genuine or not? What we've moved to now, because of the way people are transacting with devices, is that we can now validate the customer, which is a much smarter way to not only stop fraud, but also approve more transactions. So now we've got things like device recognition, all of those sort of, and we even have a tool now that can work out, differentiate how people actually use a phone, how they move their thumbs and fingers around a phone. We can actually profile someone that way. So it's becoming a much safer way and a much better way to determine the validity of a transaction. And this is what the user experience looks like. So this is where someone's made a transaction and they've gone, right, we know who this is because that's the device he always uses or she always uses, that sort of thing. So it'll go through what we call frictionless. So it's the cardholder is authenticated passively, which means it's all done in the background. There's no need to contact the cardholder to determine the validity by contacting them. Alternatively, what we have is if there's any suspicion on the card issuer's side, they can do what we call a step up, which means they'll pump out a one-time password using the phone number that the consumer or the customer has registered with them. So if I'm using someone else's card, that one-time password will go to them, won't come to me if I'm trying to use their account. So it's a really cool way of validating who someone is. And what we see there is, I know one bank in New Zealand implemented this. They originally were stepping up, say, 75% of their transactions. Within a year, they're only stepping up maybe 20%. And what they saw was a 90% reduction in fraud. But more importantly, a 13% increase in the number of authorizations, because those people before were being suspected of being a fraudulent transaction, but they weren't. They were a good customer making a transaction. But now that you've got these digital tools now to validate a person and therefore the transaction, it's become much, much easier. What does it all mean? So for a merchant now, under this new protocol, if a merchant is 3DS enabled, so all the gateways here in PNG, the merchants are 3DS enabled, that means the liability shift for an unauthorized transaction does not sit with the merchant anymore. In the old days, if it was a card not present transaction and it was, say, a fraud, the merchant was charged back. They lost their goods and they lost the value of that transaction. So if you sold something for $100, you lost $200. And there was no comeback for the merchant. Using this technology, which is in place now, means that the perception of risk is wrong when looking at onboarding e-commerce merchants, because this will eliminate about 90%, at least 90% of the chargeback exposure that a bank has. So I don't want to be too harsh on the banks, but we need to rethink how we're treating SMEs and how we're thinking about onboarding them, and we should be a bit fairer to them. It also leads to a reduction in cart abandonment. So under the old way, people would go, this is too hard, or the pop-up, I'm not touching a pop-up, I'll go away. And if it's passive, it's frictionless. The consumer doesn't see anything, so they're going to stay there and they're going to make this transaction. More will be approved, as I said, because we have a better way of validating the consumer and the account. The only other thing not to forget is that the fulfillment process needs to meet demand. So people who buy things now online want tracking, they want to see where their product is, and they will track it themselves. I know I do that myself when I buy things online. So we need to think about fulfillment processes as an e-commerce merchant and make sure we're using world-class fulfillment processes so that, you know, the consumers are getting what they want, and that's a need that must be met for e-commerce. Now I'll talk about digital wallets. We all hear about digital wallets. So recently we did something with Vodafone. So what's increasingly happening is that digital wallet or a bank wallet is now becoming the key point of contact between financial institutions, and I would say fintechs and telcos, in the case of Vodafone and Fiji. So that's where it's all at. That's the key point of of contact and communication. So with Vodafone, what we did is we've added a Mastercard debit card to that M-Pesa wallet. So the wallet account can be topped up in a whole bunch of ways. From a bank transfer, there's 6 remittance flows into that wallet. The government can disperse it, and even now employers can disperse salaries into that account. So what it means is they can promote that capability via the app. So it's completely digital. So they'll send you something that says, do you want to apply for this new Mastercard? They can apply through the app. The card is then provisioned into the app if they're approved. They don't need to attend a branch to do this, and they get faster access. But not only that, that whole onboarding experience is digital. So part of that process is uploading, taking photographs of my documents, my identity documents, and a selfie. They already know who you are because you're a customer. And then they have further KYC applications behind that. And we've seen tens of thousands of Fijians since May flock to this product. And I think that's a very telling sort of response to this sort of solution, is what people have wanted for a long time. They're not prepared to queue and wait months to get access to things. And what's really interesting is what people use this for. So everyone thought they'd be, gambling or crypto or whatever, but a lot of people are subscribing to online training courses that they don't have access to at home, and things like that. They're making their lives better through this now readily available international capability to spend their money where they want to. And I guess watch this space on that, and they can use it anywhere in the world. They also have ATM access as well. If they do want cash, they can get cash. They couldn't do that on the previous app, so the whole utility of that wallet has now really lifted, and it's hugely popular. So in summary, hope I'm keeping the time because I don't want to get tackled by the big fella there, but so global payment innovation is here. It's actually here. It's just got to be, provided to people who are seeking this. And we hear today in all the sessions that people want this and they have every right to have it. Also, I think people are more tech savvy than some people give them credit for. So yesterday I was having a coffee at BSP and I looked out. There were 4 people sitting on chairs. There's a woman, a kid. I think the little fellow would have been about 3, and 2 men. The adults were on phones and the little guy was on a tablet. So if we think that the young people of PNG are not tech savvy or getting there, we're kidding ourselves. And providers need to understand and appreciate that there's not the risk that they think that there is, particularly in the e-commerce space. And we're advocating strongly. We will continue to innovate. This is just 2 examples of what we've done. I think this will grow and continue to grow. And I'd like to think within 2 or 3 years that these type of solutions, such as that M-Pesa wallet, tap on phone, will be ubiquitous. You'll be able to catch a cab. You'll be able to do anything, and people will be able to take a digital payment from you. But we need to educate and advocate, I would say. So we're advocating, talking to small business groups, things like that, talking to finance ministers, SME ministers, central banks, anyone who will listen to us, to open their eyes that this is available now. We just need to sort of make it available for everyone. And education is a massive part of that. So we're actually going to commission a large multimedia communication project. We're actually starting next week. We'll deliver it next year, and that will help everyone in the ecosystem educate people around security, cybersecurity, scams, the value of digital payments, all of that sort of thing. We feel we need to. We're part of this community and we need to deliver to that. And we see there kind of gaps in a way. There's a lot of lack of knowledge out there, and we think if we leave it as it is, nothing's going to happen. So we're going to front foot that with the banks and in some cases law enforcement to help drive that awareness and sort of open everyone's eyes to the capabilities that digital presents. And that's what I have. Thank you. Ta.